I am Abdur Rahman, and today our story is a story of impact and recovery. It is about COVID 19. COVID 19 changed the world in many ways that we can even imagine. Countries they faced economic decline, businesses were shut down, millions of jobs were lost tragically, and many lives also were lost to this pandemic. But important question is we need to see how the different countries they experience this crisis, what industries were affected the most, how did the vaccination it help the countries to recover, and we will explore all this through data. So as you can see here, the map is all green. This means the world was growing to some extent at a steady pace. Everything was normal, and it was not an ideally very rapidly growing, but still there was some stability. There were some negative growths in areas that were suffering from war torn or any other big economical issues. Other than this, world was quite a place to live in. Then in 2019, COVID hit the world and it erupted, it impacted the world very badly. COVID basically impacted it it erupted into 2019 and then it gained its peak in 2020. As you can see here in this graph, it is showing what was the impact of COVID on its growth. If you see here, this line in late 2019 and in very early 2020, we see almost every country in the world is facing negative growth. Means their economies were shrinking, they were not growing at all. This map covers almost every country of the world, so it is very obvious in this that how rapidly growth was stopped, rather their economies of the countries were shrinking. As I discussed earlier, the map was green, which was showing that the world was growing to some extent. But here, if we look at in this map, this is quite a reddish color, which is showing that the countries were not growing at all. If we look at an example of China here, China showed a growth of 2.24%. In fact, normally China was growing at 7%. Other than this, if we look at Russia, they faced economic degrowth, that is 2.65%. My own home country, Pakistan, was growing at minus 1.27%. India, my neighboring country, was was shrinking at minus 5.78%. So overall, there was a negative growth or shrinking of economies all over the world. Global impact of COVID-19 was also seen on industries. Almost every industry, it came to halt, and they suffered a massive decline in this. The main reason was either due to the fear of pandemic. Majority of the countries were in shutdown, economic lockdown process, so industries were having shutdown. For example, if you look at here, airline industry, they suffered degrowth of minus 55%. Tourism suffered the most. Interestingly, there were 2-3 industries that suffered growth also during this time. For example, the highest growth was faced by an e-commerce business, and then there was IT industry suffered the same, means they enjoyed the growth, and even healthcare industry also has seen quite a growth. The reasons are quite obvious here. I'm not going into detail why these industries they suffered. They were enjoying the growth. Okay. Unemployment is another factor that obviously after the industries were shut down, it has impacted our daily lives. If we look at here in 2020, in early 2020, we'll see that unemployments are at all-time high. The higher the rate, it means the more number of people are unemployed. So if you look at here, almost every country in the world was facing high unemployment, because if you look at here in 2018, the unemployment rates were relatively low, and then they gained peak in 2020. So this is because of the factor industries were shut down, economies were locked down, and as a result, it was almost everything of the world was at halt. The saddest part of COVID-19 was, either the worst part of COVID-19 was the number of people who died due to COVID-19. No country in the world, sadly, was immune to this problem. For example, India, Brazil, United States, UK, Russia, you name a country, in every country we saw massive number of deaths all over the world. So it was very sad to see a number of people who were dying daily due to this COVID. And then we saw that companies were forced to, they were having a pressure to build up something to save human lives. So as a result, the world came up with COVID-19 vaccine. And in this vaccination, it had a great impact on human lives. For example, if we see the graph here, it shows how much more impact it created as number of deaths decreased during after the vaccination. When majority of the world was vaccinated, as a result, life started to turn normal. And when life started to turn normal, industries were reopened. When industries were reopened, economies started to take off. And when economies started to take off, we saw that unemployment rates that were higher during the COVID time, they also started to fall. And the world normalized till today. Now, what conclusion can we draw? COVID-19, of course, it was a global crisis that has tested humanity. It showed our ability to innovate, adopt, and recover. This data that is basically based on big numbers is a powerful story that is showing how the world has struggled, but it also shows the resilience power of the world. As we move forward, these insights that I have just shared, they have not only helped us to understand the situation, what has happened, but it has also helped us to recover, to prepare for our future. Now it is there are lots of lessons learned. Now economies are better equipped. I mean, countries are better equipped. For example, every country is having now pandemic control departments, pandemic control ministries, even in some countries. So as a result, we are better equipped for the future.